You are listening to the Bandwagoners, news and notes from around the NHL. You've got the Bandwagoners. My name is Andy Cole, buddy, up in Mackenzie, British Columbia. Justin Boniface, how's it going, my friend?
Good, how you doing, bud?
Oh, not too bad. How's it going up there?
Good. Starting to get a little bit colder, so we had our first snowfall the other day.
Nice.
Around minus 5 on a regular basis now, so we're getting there.
Wow. Yeah, it's getting colder down here now. Down in Vancouver, it's definitely it is wintertime. Halloween is over, and it's good. You know, I like the cold weather, and the only reason I say that is it reminds me of hockey. Like, it just makes me happy to be a hockey fan because it means we're getting into the nitty gritty of the fine NHL season ahead of us, and yeah, I'm really excited for this year. It's been a great month so far. I think we're like 17 games in now, roughly, for most teams, unless you're the St. Louis Blues, who've only played like 5 games.
Well, and only the Vancouver Canucks have played 17. Everybody else is around 15.
Yeah, 15 or so. There's been way more stories this past week than the week prior. 2 major ones, which we're going to be talking about tonight. We'll start off by the first one, the crazy one. The craziest of the two. Simeon.
Yeah, I mean, they're both kind of crazy.
They're both pretty crazy.
I don't know which one you're leading off with, but I guess.
I'll lead off with the one I'm not quite as angry about. Although if I was the girlfriend of said person we're about to discuss, I'd be pretty angry. Simeon Varlamov, the Russian goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche, the other day was charged. He turned himself in, actually. He was charged with
No way.
Yeah, he turned himself in. He was charged with second-degree kidnapping and third-degree assault on his girlfriend. It's speculated. Now, I must say speculated. None of this is proven yet until they go to courts. It's speculated and reported by witnesses that he assaulted his girlfriend, stomped on her head repeatedly, dragged her into his Hummer, or SUV vehicle that he owns, and drove her off somewhere. So in essence, he assaulted his girlfriend in front of witnesses, and then threw her into his SUV, and then sped off into the distance. And we don't know the reasons for this, and we don't know if it's as graphic as what I just described. This is just what witnesses are saying. But nevertheless, this isn't the kind of thing that you normally hear about in the hockey world. A little more common maybe in the NFL or even the NBA, but in the hockey world, this is pretty unusual. I mean, it's been a long time since, in my memory anyways, that I could think of a player doing something like this and then turning himself in. But Simeon Varlamov, if convicted, can face up to 6 years in prison.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, we're obviously getting out of hockey-related territory with something this intense, and obviously it's the biggest hit is going to be to Team Russia in Sochi if Varlamov is unable to play as far as hockey aspect is concerned. But obviously, like, if it is true and if it is in fact accurate, a terrible, horrendous crime, and not somebody I'd want to be participating in the NHL after that anyway.
Yeah, and to make it even funnier, and funnier is the bad word, I guess, to make it even more bizarre, he started the very next day. The very next day, Colorado played, and he was the starting goaltender. So Colorado is sloughing it off like no big deal. They're not playing it up at all. They're just, sort of sweeping it under the rug. Varlamov...
which is their job, as much speculation as there's been. I mean, he's an employee of that franchise, and they have to stand behind him until obviously something is proven. You don't want to stand beside illegal activity or criminals, but that has not been determined yet. So as an organization, you kind of just move along and maybe create some smoke screens, as we might discuss in a bit. But realistically, you can't... You got to stand behind him. You got to focus on the season. I mean, we're talking about the 12-1 Avalanche here. They have much higher priorities, and staying on top of the league is on the top of that list. I think,
absolutely.
At the moment.
Well, yeah, 5 weeks into the season, and they're still probably the talk of the NHL. I mean, Phoenix playing very well right now, very well right now. Also, I mean, Phoenix is playing well beyond what a lot of people are thinking, and they are capable of playing largely due to Dave Tippett. But even more surprising than Phoenix is Colorado. We've talked about many times over the last few shows. They're just playing absolutely unreal, and we'll talk about them in more detail in a bit. But they've been playing lights out, like absolutely great hockey, largely due to Patrick Waugh and his system. And it's unfortunate that something like this has to come into play now, the Varlamov thing, because it's nothing but a distraction. And obviously Colorado's going to do everything in their power to keep it from being that. But it's pretty scary that something like this can creep its way into this sport. I mean, it's not something we're normally very familiar with. Hockey players by nature are not very violent. They're pretty docile individuals, at least off the ice.
Well, you say that, but as the league has grown over the past 2 or 3 years, and as its popularity has exponentially grown as well. Some of our newer fans and newer listeners might actually disagree with you.
Yeah,
you and I are of an old school hockey time when there was one big guy on a team maybe, and that was to protect your Gretzky type player, and that was it. And now people would beg to differ. I mean, you got your Matt Cooks,
I'm talking more so about
he's changed his game, but you've I'm
talking more about off the ice.
Play that role and might actually have that mentality. Might be the goon type player on the ice and off the ice. They might be a goon type person.
So you're speculating there are guys off the ice that would be willing to act that way?
Well, that's a massive statement. Obviously, that way, a lot of people don't act that way, no matter how violent they may seem. That's a horrendous crime that we're talking about. But what I'm saying is, you have to take into consideration that there's a lot more players in the league, and there's a lot more aggression in the league. And some of the people that they've brought up, I'm not naming any players specifically, but I'm just saying the mindset has changed as such that there are a lot more of those players in the league. We haven't seen any major news stories break other than Semyon Varlamov and maybe the other odd one in the past few seasons, but I wouldn't be surprised if we, occasionally got one here or there that were along the lines of this one.
Just based on the violent nature of the sport and how it's in recent years become more violent. Like there was a time when, although statistically fighting has decreased year on year, the aggression of those fights and the aggression of the injuries that we are seeing has shot up dramatically.
Well, it's not just fights. I mean, we're talking headshots. We're talking malicious acts, right?
Yes.
I mean, a fight is not necessarily a malicious act. You could be the kindest soul in the world and still want to stand up for your teammates and get in a fight. It's not about the fighting. But I think that based on the attitude of a lot of players that are coming into the league because of their roles, because of the roles, but the roles that they have would indicate that only certain people might want to try and fill in those roles. And a lot of goons are really kind-hearted guys, but I'm sure there's a few out there, maybe not in the NHL at this stage of the game, but it's becoming a much bigger sport and a much more aggressive sport for teams that are trying to win. So hopefully we never see stories like this again, but I would think that the possibility is maybe increasing slightly. But I don't think that has to do with the organizations and the players that they're picking. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I totally see what you mean. I mean, it's there is this thug mentality which is prevalent in a lot of NHL locker rooms, especially the teams that aren't as skilled, that they have to win with toughness. And I mean, yes, toughness is a factor. Every team that's successful has to be tough to a certain degree. You don't win Stanley Cups without some level of toughness. Even the high-flying Chicago Blackhawks had guys like Brian Bickle throwing their weight around. So, I mean, you do have to have a level of toughness. But, I totally see what you're saying. There is that mentality there, which I think has snuck into the sport a little bit. And, an incident like Varlamov's is obviously not something you want to see, and it is very, very surprising and shocking. To go on with the subject, the more bizarre thing in the situation now is just the very next day, there was a Russian diplomat or a Russian representative of the Russian Ice Hockey Federation, specifically pertaining to the Olympics, who's stating that this is actually a massive NHL conspiracy. They're attempting to keep Varlamov from playing on the Russian team so Canada or the U.S. can win the Olympic gold. Like, what do you say to that?
Yeah, like, are you kidding me? That's such a major joke. It's ridiculous. I mean,
I think he still thinks the Cold War is going on. I'm pretty sure that.
Right? And there's so much talent in the league at this stage. I mean, every nation who's approaching Sochi is really the goaltending position is up for grabs. And you might say that Varlamov might have been ahead of the rest of the pack as far as the Russian contenders are concerned. But,
nah, man, Bobrovsky all the way.
Right? I mean, there's lots of other talent in the league, and I mean, if you're bitching that Varlamov is not going to be there to start for you in a national team, I wouldn't worry too much about it anyway, Russians.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're fighting tooth and nail to make sure that your goalie is going to be Semyon Varlamov, I mean, he's a good goalie, but maybe breaks the top 10 in the NHL.
Yeah.
Get over yourself, right? Like.
Yeah. And another interesting story that occurred through this the very next day, a wave of the aftershock or aftermath of it. Steve Downey was traded from Colorado to Philadelphia for Maxime Talbot.
So this is the smokescreen I mentioned earlier.
A bizarre trade.
Because it really is a lateral move for both teams. It doesn't seem to make a major impact. I mean, I like Maxime Talbot, and I've watched him a lot. especially through the years of being a Penguin, and we got an up close look at him in 24/7 2 years in a row because he went Pens and went Flyers. So I really like Talbot. So for me, it's an easy decision to say that Colorado won that trade just because I know a lot more about Talbot than I do about Downey. The kind of person Talbot is, the kind of attitude he brings to the dressing room. So I have a biased statement in saying that just due to the knowledge I have on Talbot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, statistically, it's a lateral move, and it doesn't seem to make much sense other than to kind of defer from maybe other attention the media might be giving in the Colorado dressing room these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're very similar players, third-line grinder types, possibly second-liners if you're being generous. They play similar styles. Downey's a bit younger, and he's a little more skilled, offensively, I should say. Although Downey really is a shadow of his former self. I mean, he was the best I've seen him when he was a Lightning. I mean, he's been good on Colorado, but he's also been injured a lot, so he hasn't been great. Talbot, sorry, since he left Pittsburgh, he hasn't really been terrific. But then again, no one on Philadelphia has been terrific. Oh, by the way, this is totally off topic, but go to hasgiroux-scored-yet.com. It is hilarious.
So good. The new
hilarious. Oh my god, it's amazing. Claude Giroux is like this year's Scott Gomez.
I really like G.
I don't get it, man. I was joking with a buddy of mine.
Sports cover player.
Oh, I know. He's one of the few players in the world.
Calling him.
Go ahead.
Calling him the best player in the world 2 years ago. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right? That's insane. And now he can't even put a point on the board.
One of the few guys on the planet that could take over a game and put it on his shoulders. And it looks like he's got some voodoo doll curse or something. He's just not himself at all. It's really bizarre.
They never should have let go of Jágr. To me, that was the best mentor-protege relationship in the NHL.
Yep.
Jágr spoke so highly of Claude Giroux, and obviously when that happens, how much confidence are you going to gain when one of the legends is telling everybody how awesome you are? Just random little quotes and reports to Russian papers about it's just like setting up Lemieux in the old days, or I can be confident about doing no-look backhand passes to the slot and things like that. And I was so shocked when that trade was made because that is so much value combined. And no matter what Jágr was asking, the Flyers had the room, and Giroux could have used that information and used that mentorship to become one of the best players in the NHL to this day. Obviously, you have to do it on your own. Matt Duchene is completely proving that point as well. You need to be able to do it independently, but just to sever a mentor connection like that, I think that was honestly the biggest toll. His game went straight downhill. After that, the Flyers have had 2 lackluster seasons since Jágr left.
Well, Jaromir Jágr is one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. I mean, he's top 10, top 15 statistically of all time, and he's still in the NHL. He's probably a shoo-in for the Olympics. Well, maybe, but he's probably a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame upon retirement. I don't even think he's going to have to wait the. I don't even think he's going to have to wait the 4 to 6 year minimum. I think they're just going to put him in there right away. I think he's earned it.
There's a few players that can skip that list, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's earned it with his play. I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time. Even, yes, on the coattails of Mario Lemieux a little bit, but a lot of the statistics he built up were on his own as well.
You're going to you could say the same thing about Malkin, but the bottom line is those players have the skill and have the talent. Yeah, you might chop off 10 points a season if you put them on a different roster, but
they can do it on their own.
Of course they can. They're extremely talented, and Jágr has developed his game in just like Solani. Maybe not as Koivu, maybe not the best example, but some of the veteran players in the league, Lidstrom, Datsuk, players who find a way. They don't have to be that top guy. Even though they were that top guy, they know how to take the lesser role, and they know how to fill that role properly, and they know how to become a part of the team where they're needed.
Yeah.
So as Jágr's done that extremely well. Obviously, the talent helps out, but that's one thing you have to be as a veteran and as an NHL player who's 37 plus. Is you have to know your place in the lineup
and be able to reinvent yourself a little bit as well, right?
Of course, my favorite example of this is in Jeremy Roenick's last year. I believe it was with the Phoenix Coyotes. He went on a stretch there where he was a point every 2 games.
Yeah.
And he got interviewed about it, and he was 39 at the time or something like that. And he said exactly pretty much what I'm saying now, and just went to the point of like, this is all I'm doing. All I'm doing is instead of skating down the wing and looking for the passing play or trying to crash the net and get the slot, he's like, I'm looking for the tip. I'm looking for the deflection off the point shot. I'm looking to make traffic in front. You know, the game has also gone that way, more to the traffic in front than the run and gun. But at the same time, he was one of that's one of the older veteran quotes that I can remember, just being like, you got to find your place in the lineup. It's one thing when you're the all-star and you can do every role, you know, killing penalties and on the power play and on the 5-on-5, but to find that slot in the